predict the weather. How about that? Want to talk to tomorrow?
Are you going to
Tomorrow.io?
Let's talk about tomorrow's weather with tomorrow.io.
Come on over here. So GM Logistics, Ayala Rudoy.
We're just talking about how weathermen should really take more responsibility for the weather that they predict.
We really should. You know, Nick, they had
really
the
should.
Nicolas Cage movie about that. Like everyone would drive by and like pelt the weather.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, no, I mean, if you had any control over it, we would thank you because it was really cold here in Chattanooga last week and it really worked out. It's been beautiful, the weather out here. We couldn't have asked for better.
Yeah, that's our demo environment out here.
That's your demo was great weather to this?
Yeah, it is. Come outside and see our demo.
Significant claims there, Trevor Milton. How do we take responsibility for the weather, though? Like how, in terms of a more philosophical sense, since we can't predict it, how do we be responsible for understanding it?
I think the first thing is for the industry to know there is a solution. You can't blame the weather anymore. It's up to the carriers and the private fleets to know that there is a solution, the technology is there. And so they need to put systems in place to keep their drivers, their trucks, and everything else safe. So I think that's the first step.
It really is. So we talk about the benefits that are in there, right? What are we talking about the disruptions that the weather causes? Because hurricanes, you're not going to do anything except plan, right? And know that it's coming and maybe it hits within this 100-mile cone or whatever it happens to be. But that emergency type weather.
Right. It can be anything from a pop-up storm to, just a very strong gust that is unexpected. And the industry can't really manually solve it because there are millions of trucks running everywhere. And you have to understand how the specific weather impacts specific trucks to be able to prevent them from going into dangerous weather.
Specific types of trucks and or...
Specific type of trucks, if it's empty or full. If it's in Texas, snow is more dangerous than in the Northeast.
Sure. I mean, weather's chaos, right? Weather is chaos. You're dealing in chaos. What does tomorrow do? What do you do for the people out here?
So we help carriers and private fleets to, one, be proactive before they even dispatch, identify any disruptions ahead of time, potentially rerouting, rescheduling, just let the driver know that he might need to take a stop after this segment of the road. And then in real time, we integrate with all the ELDs, with the camera feeds, and we alert drivers ahead of weather based on their location, because weather is volatile. So sometimes, long haul, if it's 2 days ahead, sometimes there is a pop-up storm, we would make sure to let the driver know ahead of time. So potentially we could prevent an accident.
Hey, weather's impactful. It helped build a company. It helped build FreightWaves.
Absolutely.
Our media arm here is because an article about weather did really, really well. That launched our brand. But it can also submarine your brand. As you're saying, there's a lot of risk inherent in setting things out, like say there's a massive typhoon or something coming.
So I think the industry is doing well in the big major hurricane, because it's not a surprise to anyone. It's easier to take the decision to make the decision to shut everything down.
Well, what should they be doing better?
Right.
If they're doing already a pretty good job, how can they do better?
Making sure that every load, every truck, every driver is protected and have a system to alert them in time, that they know what's the weather expected ahead of time, and they have a system to alert them while they're driving. Yeah,
just knowing the weather isn't all of it, right? It's the infrastructure around it and what type, the topography of and everything else is important too, right? A wind in the upper Midwest, right, or the high plains is different than the wind here. It's because you got trees and everything else that is different, correct?
Yeah, so you really need to run these high resolution models to take the terrain into account and to say, is this wind gonna cause high gust, strong gust that would blow over an empty load or not? So if you start to alert about everything all the time, it becomes just white noise. And you don't wanna do that as well.
What's the most interesting conversation you've had out on the floor?
I think it was really great to learn from carriers that drivers are also taking at how their companies are dealing with weather, especially during the winter. We've heard a lot of carriers that are doing things about the weather, that are putting systems in place, and they say drivers would come to them after a bad winter because their carrier made them drive through bad conditions, and they care about their safety. And so, with driver shortages, you do everything possible to make sure you can attract talent. And I think knowing that weather is a key part of that as well, and how your company is treating that and the safety of the employees, really, really, not just saying it. It's something we thought, might be true, but hearing it from the actual carriers was really, really interesting.
Sure. And before we let you go, why should anyone here reach out to you, have a conversation with you before they leave?
Sorry?
Why should anyone here talk to you tomorrow? Why should they talk to you before they leave or afterwards?
If you're driving anywhere where there's weather,
yes.
You should definitely reach out to us if you want to ensure your drivers are safe, if you want to ensure you're not only keeping the drivers safe, but also making everything possible to ensure your operational efficiency.
Yeah.
You don't want to send a driver and then have them coming back, wasting all the fuel, the time, and being late to your customer. So if you want to prevent all of that and mitigate, kind of take control over the weather, they should reach
Well, that
out.
sounds like a lot of people.
Responsibility of the weather.
Exactly.
Sounds like a lot of people because there's weather everywhere.
Most places there's some weather. You also don't want to shut down for nothing, right?
Exactly.
All right, hit that bell. Hit that bell. Come on. You can beat those other
Take
two
responsibility. Wow.
guys. Well,
All
a little
right.
better beat. Actually, I think that might have been the best beat so far.
Well, she had a little move there too that was pretty.